Hey, Krista.
Hey, Lily.
Did you know in your lifetime you'll pass a murderer 36 times?
I did. And you know why?
Why?
Because we're 36 Times, a Canadian true crime podcast which covers crimes in the Great White North.
Oh, right.
Every episode, we focus on a major crime and then we lighten things up with a kooky one.
We talk about everything from the criminal justice system itself to animals arguably not doing what they should, bringing you true crime with a shot of maple syrup.
Catch our episodes bi-weekly on iTunes or your favorite, that's favorite with a U, podcast app.
Do not take product if you are hypersensitive.
Oh, hey there, Internet. Welcome back to the Intoxicated podcast. If you are a new listener, welcome to the podcast. This is typically a show where I have my friends on, and they choose an alcohol, and we talk about life. You guys, I am so excited for this episode. I have been waiting for this day. This episode has been in the bank for a while now, and I've had it planned to come out as number 36 because on this episode, I talked to Lily and Krista from the 36 Times podcast. I actually discovered this podcast when I was at HalCon and I got to meet Krista and found out all about the podcast that she has with her friend Lily. 36 Times podcast is a Canadian true crime podcast. They release new episodes on a bi-weekly basis, and they cover a wide range of Canadian true crime cases. They tend to focus on cases that may not have gotten a lot of media attention, cases that people might not know about. And that's what I really love about their podcast. Not to mention, these are two hilarious women. It is a comedy podcast with true crime, so if you're into that, you're going to love this podcast. I had a blast recording with Krista and Lilly. It was just so refreshing and great to talk to two women who have the same crazy hobby as me. They get it. They get what it's like to have a podcast. And it was just fascinating to get to know them a bit better. So if you're here because you're a listener of 36 Times, thanks so much for coming over to my channel and checking it out. I'm so glad I could give a platform for you guys to get to know Krista and Lily a bit better. So in this episode, we do talk about the origin of the podcast. We talk about our mutual love for true crime, the teamwork that goes into producing a podcast, and also the idea of mixing comedy with true crime. It's not the easiest thing to do, but Krista and Lily are two incredible hosts. They're really well researched, they have a strong attention to detail, and they're hilarious. So you're really getting the full package if you subscribe to the 36 Times podcast. And it was also really fun because we actually even got into a discussion all about the Me Too movement. Always a good time to just sit and talk with two awesome, like-minded women. I'm so happy I met them, so happy that they came on the show. And I'm going to be plugging 36 Times podcast pretty much from here on out. So do me a favor. If you're a regular Intoxicated listener, go on over to iTunes, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, and type in 36 Times podcast and hit that subscribe button. And even better, leave them a review or a rating on there as well. I can't stress the importance of ratings and reviews more, especially when it comes to podcasts like Intoxicated and 36 Times, because we are local podcasts, we are smaller, we are trying to get out there, and whenever you leave a rating or review, you're going to increase our chances of getting on the iTunes charts, and that's going to increase visibility and have us attract more listeners. So if you do leave a rating or review, we would greatly appreciate it. You can find 36 Times on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 36 Times Podcast. In addition to a Facebook page, they also have a Facebook group you can join. So if you are a lover of true crime, also join the 36 Times Podcast group. Their website is 36times.podbean.com. I will be sure to add links in the description of this episode so you can follow them and check them out. I'd like to give a birthday shout out to Corey. It is Corey's birthday today. When you're hearing this on Thursday, it is his birthday. So happy birthday, Corey. Corey's the host of Intoxicated Reviews. He works really, really hard over on the Reviews channel. For any new listeners, Intoxicated Reviews is a separate channel dedicated to TV and movies. And the show happens to be on the iTunes charts right now. So happy birthday, Corey. You deserve it. And going in with the theme of true crime, Crime. He actually has an episode out with Bryant Thompson all about Friday the 13th Part 6. So they do cover a lot of horror movies over on the Reviews channel. So this is a win-win for everyone involved. You can listen to your true crime podcast, you can get to know the hosts on my channel, and then you can go and hear about horror movies on Corey's channel. So there you go. So show him some birthday love. Make sure you are subscribed to Intoxicated Reviews everywhere you find podcasts, and maybe give him a little birthday shout out on our Instagram or our Facebook page. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Intoxicated Podcast. On Twitter, we're _toxicated. And as always, if you have feedback, questions, really anything, you can always email us at intoxicatedpodcast@gmail.com. Our website is still going strong. It's housing all the episodes from both channels in one spot, and that is www.intoxicatedpodcast.com. And another heads up, this was a long episode, so it is going to be a two-parter. I would say that this is the main part of the episode. At one point, we did play some games. We did murder mystery ad-libs, and we also played Two Truths and a Lie. So that game stuff is going to be on a separate episode that I'm going to release on Friday. So that will be a shorter part that you'll get to hear on Friday. Continue to spread the Intoxicated love. Make sure you tell your friends about the podcast. Give our episodes a share. We'll always appreciate it. Now let's get to the show with Krista and Lilly from the 36 Times podcast. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Intoxicated podcast, guys. You guys. I'm gonna curse. I don't even care. You guys, you don't know me that well, but there's a lot of cursing on this podcast. I'm fucking so excited right now to have Lilly and Krista from 36 Times podcast. Yay! It's like the Muppets. I'll put in an applause. There we go. Oh my gosh.
I'm already on it. You put a bell in front of me.
Welcome to the podcast, you guys.
Hey, no worries.
So each of you say hi. So this is Krista.
Hi. Hi, I'm Lilly.
Thank you guys so much for coming on. Oh my gosh. This was something I threw out on an episode and you guys heard it and you reached out and you said, I'm down to do it.
We are down.
We've never done this.
We've never done this. This is live.
Yeah, Krista was saying that she's never been interviewed before. No. So I'll be sure to be extra hard on you. No, I'm
good.
I'm
just doors over there.
You just take your cupcakes and go.
And the cat.
I'll do Krista's voice, and then we won't.
Good luck.
It's gonna be horrible. It'll just be me. Hi, I'm Krista.
Could you do impressions of each? I mean,
no,
because you listen to each other's voice all the time. Could you do impressions of each other?
Absolutely not.
No,
we've already discussed, and actually in the podcast, Lily's accent, which
doesn't make sense.
What's your accent?
Well, it's from around here, but not in the city. I'm a country child, and so it then got filtered through Newfoundland for 5 years for university, and then I lived in England, and now I'm back, and I just sound house. That's how I say
house. I say what? People make fun of how I say house all the time.
Mouse.
How do you mouse? Okay, how does a normal person say house?
House. Yeah.
House.
I went and did like a thesis on House MD, and so it's almost like I was asking for it for most of my last year of university to be all like, yes, I know house doesn't sound right. House. I was had somebody explain the Nova Scotian accent to me, which first off, thanks, but they're like, we say oatmeal and outside the same.
Outside.
OA and OU is the same sound to us.
Yeah.
You don't understand.
I would agree with that.
So you don't understand how words work.
You never think you have an accent.
No.
Like, as someone who has an accent.
Yeah. And then you go, like, it was like when I was over in England, they're like, no, miss, you're the one with the accent. I'm like, I am not. So.
Damn. Oh,
Krista has like the most neutral accent.
Oh, it's Northern New Brunswick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I can
So it's a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe there's some
neutral
francophone in there.
Well, you can say French very well.
Yeah.
No. Awkward waiting for
I understood that lady in the store today that was speaking to her child.
Yes.
But
in French?
Oh, yeah, but I wasn't going to converse.
No.
I only speak high school French.
Yeah.
So I can count to 10 and that's about it.
I know that like seal is fuck.
Fuck. Yeah.
Well done.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all I got. That's
Most
all I got.
4-year-olds know that.
Yes. Me and the level of a 4-year-old, then that's fine. I'm good with that.
Holy guacamole.
Right?
So, yeah, I met Krista at HalCon
In the lineup.
and I was speaking with actually a friend of mine now, Cole, who ended up doing the podcast because he's awesome. And we were talking about podcasts, and you came in
I heard the word true crime, and like Lassie, my ears perked and was like, give them shit. Because I had postcards and stickers.
I still have them.
We have a button for you. We brought you a button.
Yay! It was fucking fantastic. And then we just all started talking. Geeked out over podcasts, really.
Because I was like, this is the lineup I need to be in.
Right? That was my thing.
I was getting texts live from that lineup.
Yeah, I was
somebody who does a podcast and help. Someone coming in.
Yes! Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah, because Lily couldn't be with me.
No.
I was so happy to meet, I was so happy to meet other local people.
Yeah.
People you can actually get together with.
Yes.
Because I don't know about you, but I'm not a huge fan of the Skype thing. I like this better. I like...
Well, you can
talking
see people reacting to what you're saying.
Exactly, and you talk
and
a bit beforehand.
Skype is for my mother and only her.
Yes, right?
Yep.
Big time.
Oh, yeah.
Not to bury the lead, but Krista and Lilly are the hosts of the 36 Times podcast. And it's a true crime podcast that focuses on Canadian, right?
Yeah. Yes.
You focus on Canadian
Canada.
true crime. And you've been around since January.
Yep.
So kind of around the same time as Intoxicated. We started end of February, so...
It's that time of the year when little podcasts come
start
trundling out on weak legs.
Rear their heads right there. I'm so excited to have you guys on because I have so many questions about this. But I guess let's start with your friendship. How did you guys meet? How did this friendship start?
It's a fairly newish friendship. We obviously
we shock people.
It's only been 2 years?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And we met at a board game night.
Yeah.
Through mutual friends?
Or
it was
a meetup.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was at the library, and it happened. Well, it was every Monday.
Yeah,
you guys moved back from England, and I was already going every Monday. So
really, and you just connected when
we
you
kicked
met?
it off. We played a game called Codenames. And Codenames is a game where you have to get someone to guess certain words on a board that using just one word and a number. So if you have 3 words that are like tree and maple and I don't know bark, you can be all like woods 3, and they have to pick out of 25 words the 3 words that
is associated with woods.
Yeah.
So is it kind of like the most common words that are associated?
I mean,
it's hard to
not
say.
always, because that's how we
Family
knew
Feud
that we
style?
clicked, because I had to get them to guess what was it? It was
Stadium?
I used Stadium 3, and it was like building, concert, and scorpion.
What?
And I said Stadium 3, hoping that someone would understand.
One of those things
that
is not
she
like
met
that.
Scorpion the band.
I could play in a stadium.
Here I am.
Yes,
exactly.
So, and Chris was like, yeah, and I'm like, friend.
Wow, that is so fucking cool.
But I
is.
think shortly after that, we
Yeah.
were invited to a Halloween party
Yes. Yeah.
at a mutual friend of ours' house, and I drove her down, and we were talking on the way back in that awkward moment where you're in a car with somebody you don't really know them very well. I don't even know how we stumbled on it, but we found out that we both like true crime.
Yeah.
So that kind of did it.
I know that was it.
Yeah.
Because you're always cagey when it comes to true crime.
Yeah,
you're like,
love
I'm
it.
super into horror
Murders.
movies, and I'm really into Harry Potter.
Try to ease people into it.
Super into true crime. I'm like what?
Do you think that's changing though? Do you think it's becoming more of a?
thing.
It's becoming more of a thing now where people are more loud and proud about it. I think.
It's almost weird now if you're not interested.
Right?
It is a little bit weird, and I find that in regards to promoting the podcast itself, I don't shout it out. I don't really say much about it in regards to my family, friends, coworkers, and all that. I don't say much about it because You know, that's not everybody's cup of tea, and I'm not about to tell you to go listen to it.
No,
because if it's not your thing, then absolutely not. Don't listen to it.
Because you'll be
uncomfortable. Right? And I mean, nobody wants that. So, and I don't want to put anybody. If I know them well enough and I know that might be of interest, I'll mention it. But I don't. I don't shout it out. I don't say, you know.
And I think that's good. I think that's a good thing because I mean I share my episodes on my Facebook page like every week that I release them. Yeah. And I usually just share it once because I find in this day and age everyone is selling something.
Everybody's got a side hustle.
Everyone has a side hustle. But here's the thing. I find podcasts are way different than selling lipstick. I don't know what you guys think.
No, it's true.
It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe.
That's what it is.
You can be a Patreon if you want. If you really like it, you can be a Patreon.
Yeah, man.
But
it feels the same when you're doing it,
content.
and yet
and I don't like to do that.
Content, and yet it's sort of like,
and I don't like to do it on my own, not on my personal page. Like, you know, we'll shout it out from our own.
Yeah.
And I'll invite people that I know that might be interested, but short of that,
keep it separate.
I keep it totally separate.
Keep it totally separate, and I think that's the way to do it, so you're not overwhelming people who don't want to know about it.
Yeah.
Because if they wanted to know about it,
then they would
like your page.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because my Facebook now says, like, now they've got the option of, like, manages what pages, and it will say manages 36 times. So if they want to know, they can click it.
For sure. That on there?
Yeah. I know.
One thing I should say is my parents don't know about my podcast yet.
Really?
Oh my goodness.
That's doing well.
That's impressive.
Hiding it.
No, but it's not the same.
It's just I have not mentioned it to them.
Yeah. Well,
I may block them from the posts that I share. I'm getting there. I'm getting to a point where, because there's a lot of personal stuff on my show.
Yeah. Oh, I listened to your recent ones, us too.
Oh yeah. Did you like it?
Yes.
That was a really hard one for me to do.
I had like a lot of interest in that movement and different angles of it. And
hell yeah.
Yeah.
That one was like putting my soul out into the universe.
Yeah.
It was like the most personal part of me was now out there. And I'm getting to a point where I'm like, I need to start embracing it more and not be ashamed that I have this podcast. And if my family finds it, they find it. I hope they don't listen to certain episodes. But I mean, what can I do? This is part of my life, and I'm sure it's going to even become a bigger part of my life going forward.
Yeah.
So eventually I'm going to have to get to a point where I don't hide it, but right now I'm just trying to get
I'm totally on board with that. You get that feeling of almost like being shameful of it.
Yeah, when you first started, it was very much like, I don't want to bug people with it, and I don't want to have that out, because I've always been very open with my interest in like serial killers and so on. I was actually known in university for having more than one serial killer t-shirt, but fictional, mind you. It was like Hannibal Lecter t-shirts, plural. But I really had that, and I was like a goth in high school, so kind of people expected it. But now it's sort of like when you first started the podcast, it was almost like I didn't want to get in people's faces with something, and now I do. Now I'm like, I'm constantly like, hey, you know what? I do a thing, and I really enjoy it, and I would like you to enjoy it too.
I freaking understand so hard.
It's really hard.
When you're starting out, you're trying not to
bug anyone, and that's.
Yeah, you're trying not to create ripples of that. Yeah. I found that too. Like, I recorded an episode that was a little more controversial. That I was like, it was early on too, and I was like, I don't really know my audience that well. I don't know if they'll be offended. I don't know if they'll be turned off from it, so I won't post it. And I didn't end up posting it. And then I got to a point where I was like, wait a second. I don't know if these people are listening. They're not telling me they're listening.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
And I just released it because I was just like, you know what? Like, if you're proud of it and it makes, if you get done recording an episode and you feel good about that episode, you should release it.
The worst thing that can happen is someone just saying that's horrible and I hate it, and you're like, okay, great, bye.
Great, you listened.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's sort of like, so you downloaded it, right?
So we got that number, right?
Yeah. It is sort of, you have to move past. At first, it was very much like, everybody like it.
Yeah.
Don't anyone hate it. And then it got to a point where it's like, okay, you know what? Now, if someone doesn't like it, it's like, okay, I'm sorry that you don't like it, but I now know there's a million podcasts out there. Don't have to listen to ours again.
Exactly. Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
Thanks for the feedback.
If it's feedback, let me tell you, I'm always welcome to it. But if it's just sort of like, this sucks, it's like,
well, why? Why does it suck?
Yeah. I don't have time.
Does it not interest you? No. Or was there... Yes. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, specify, maybe be more specific about what you've been like.
Yeah.
And your podcast, like, it's it's a little tough subject matter.
You're not kidding. These last couple weeks have been horrible.
Yeah.
But you always put a disclaimer.
Yes.
You always do. You always say,
We try to. And as we keep going on with it, we're getting more and more aware of those disclaimers and just making sure that we're spouting them out a little bit more often, because it's a lot of heavy material.
I don't mind doing that. I find it strange when people are like, yeah, but I don't want to put all those things in, because it's sort of like, well, it's like 5 seconds worth of our time.
No, and I don't mind doing it either. It's more of I kind of not really forget to do it. Like, I do. I honestly forget to do it because I keep thinking that this is people sign on for.
You're the one who reminds me to put it in the notes. And
I do.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah.
Because in your mind, you're like, if people are subscribed, they know.
But then
someone could just be popping in on a random episode.
Exactly, yeah.
You don't want to, you want to make sure. But I mean, at the same time, if you're clicking on it, ooh, that's one thing I want to get to.
Yeah.
Your name.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is super fucking cool. I love this so much. So where did you come up with
I saw
36
it on
times.
A meme on Facebook that somebody put up. It's just a meme. It's a Halloween thing. I think I noticed it the Halloween before we started. It's just said, hey, in your lifetime, you're going to walk past a murder 36 times. This is just your happy note that, you're still alive. Like, that was something to that effect,
Like a motivational poster.
Yeah, it was like a motivational poster.
Made it.
Exactly.
You made it.
Just thought you'd like to know. And then that's kind of cool. And I always thought if we did this, that we would do something that would be a little bit not the norm. It wasn't going to have the words true crime in it. I wanted it to be something that was different, that people would look and go, what the hell is that about?
Yes, that's exactly what it does.
Yeah, and then just read the synopsis and be like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Plus, we now use it as our opening. Like, we say that same meme over time.
I love that.
Every time with a crap joke.
Yeah.
In between.
And then we learned, actually, like, I found an article about it, about the meme itself. And it's like, no, it's not 36 times no matter where you live. It depends on where you live. So it could be on average 2.
It could be 100.
It was like 70 something.
Yeah, I think
because if you live in a high populated area, and it counts because people haven't been caught or people have been caught, and it counts all that into it. And because people are like 36 times, that's a lot. And it's like, well, actually, 24 is the average.
Yeah, so, it's something ridiculous in America. It's like 22.7 or something like that.
And also, what qualifies as a lifetime?
Right. No, if you're like trundling around at 120, you're getting the most of the quota.
Yep.
Regardless, I freaking love that so much because I think it ties into the mystery of like, holy shit, you could literally walk by someone who could.
You just don't know who you're walking by.
You don't know who you're walking by.
Yeah, absolutely.
Damn. So you just one night you just decided you'd start a podcast. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, well, sort of. Yeah. I started listening to My Favorite Murder. Yeah. And I was like, fuck that shit, I can do that.
I've called them out so many times.
That's legit.
And I was like, well, I mean, this is essentially what Lily and I do on the weekends anyway.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Why not record it?
Yeah. One thing I really like about what you guys do is you tend to put a positive spin on it. At the end, like, you tend to focus on crimes that change laws or change.
Yeah, we aim towards something that's done something.
Right. And
Krista's focus for a while there was, and still is, I'm sure, is missing cases or unsolved.
Yeah, unsolved. I like putting a little bit more emphasis. And that's the thing. It's just like, hey, remember this? This happened a long time ago. Let's try to push it out there in the media again, even though it's just a small podcast. It's worthwhile doing.
Oh, 100%.
And I'm focused on like, I try to find like law changes or
love that.
Again, my feminist agenda angle where it changed because of this constant banging on the door.
Let's talk about it. The feminist agenda.
Yeah. Well, did you listen to F is for Feminism yet? It's a little bit ways back.
It's way
you'll
back.
have to.
Yeah,
that's a.
But listen. I could tell you guys were feminists. I'm trying to think of the first episode I listened to. I think from you guys was where is it? The Amazing Jane.
Yeah.
And that was the one that I was like, we gonna get along.
We got these
again. It's heavy subject matter, but it's important subject matter.
And she was local as well to like where we were, and it was someone that I didn't actually know about, admittedly, but I was told about her, and I really read the book, and she did so much for women and intimate partner violence after the fact. Hey, you just tuning in. This is a story, Amazing Jane's the story of Jane Hirschman. She ended up killing her husband, who had been horrifically abusive to her and her kids, and she was charged with murder, and she was not guilty, and then the court system said, no, actually she is guilty, so we're bringing her back. And so she pled guilty in the second time round and did her time. And then for 10 years, she pushed for every way to help people with intimate partner violence.
Right.
That's important. And
So
she did a lot. And then she died of suicide, supposedly, but it was very mysterious. Because she was found in her car with all the doors unlocked except for her driver's side door, and she was shot in the chest, and the gun was beside her on the passenger side seat.
That's suspicious as
super suspicious. So yeah, it was the whole thing.
To me, I would not immediately go to suicide there.
No. So it was very, and she had gotten death threats, and because of what she was doing. And it's important to talk about what she did, because this woman got death threats for doing it, and that should change. So
100%.
Yeah.
And that was the episode that hooked me.
Yeah.
Like, it only took one episode to hook me on your show. That was the one, and I'm going to go back and listen to the others.
Yeah.
But the feminist thing, it's kind of an overtone, would you say, of your show?
Well, for me, I push it all the time. Yeah. Krista does quite well to put up with the fact that I constantly make it a feminist problem. Oh, yeah. Krista's like the sensible one. That's like feminist, like quietly, and I'm like that, like young, angry feminist still. Yeah. So.
And if you don't mind putting it on the mic, how old are you guys?
36.
36 and
29.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a running joke on the podcast as well.
That Krista's ancient.
Yeah.
No.
Constant.
So here's like my thing is, I'm 30, and I never used to consider myself a feminist.
No, me too.
It was only until I would say, like, very recently that I started being loud and proud about it.
We were at that like ugly stage of the world where it was a bad word. Yeah. When we were young, and like in university, it was a really bad word.
If there was a stigma attached to it, and it's a certain character.
Yeah, it was the straw feminist thing, like from the Kate Beaton comics, Harker Vagrant. She has the straw feminists, and they're amazing. Oh wow! They're all like, they come out of the closet, and the kids are like, "Oh no, the straw feminists are here!" And they're like, "Burn your bras."
Oh my God, exactly! Like it's this image in people's heads of. These angry women.
And like men need to be lesser. And and I hate the thing that was going around is all like, I don't need feminism because, and it's like, oh my God, vomit. It's not that. It's equality. Please.
Do you think doing this diving more deep into true crime has increased that at all?
I think it takes the narrative back at times.
Yeah, and in all honesty, and especially in the genre of true crime and podcasting, it's women. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, for the most part, the hosts are women. And and I think that plays into it, because there's just more of these stories happening because it's being presented by women.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So I think
women are talking about it now.
Yeah, I think it's just creating a bit more of a stir, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think it's getting the stories out there, because I know when I'm looking at crimes, I'm not looking at numbers, I'm not looking at fame, I'm looking at the effect that has on the society and the effect it's had on the community that it took place in. So we're like approaching women, we're talking about the Native community, we're talking about LGBT, we're moving past just, this is a famous murder that we want to cover. I think it's because
I can tell you we will never cover Paul Bernardo for that exact reason. It's been done.
It's been done. Yeah. You're uncovering the ones people might not know about.
Yeah. And for the most part, in regards to like reviews, that's what a lot of people are, in the way of positive reviews, have come back with. Yeah. You know,
like, I've never heard of this case.
Or I've never heard of, you know, and
that's what made us want to focus on Canada.
Thank you for covering this case because I grew up there, or something like that.
Yeah. You guys should be proud. I mean, you really should be.
Krista definitely should be proud. She's gotten messages from the family
to a victim messaged us, just really happy that we had covered it, because it was an unsolved. It's an unsolved crime from the 70s in Montreal. Sharon Pryor.
Okay.
And her sister sent us a quick note. In fact, I think she's still a member on our page, and every once in a while we'll like things. And that was huge.
How cool is that? Oh my god!
Like, you ever have that feeling of like your stomach dropping out due to like something that's shocking? That was that feeling. I opened my phone up and I think I was at my child's soccer game and I was like, oh my god! Yeah, I was like,
and she just found it randomly. Like found. Well, she must have been because
probably she saw the name.
Yeah, I would imagine because especially for the ones that. We initially tried to make witty titles,
right?
But as we keep going, especially something like the unsolved cases, I like to put their names in just to make sure if somebody did look it up.
And you linked it to the page that she made as well.
Yes, and her mother's page was on it. So yeah.
So sometimes you gotta sometimes you have to be more specific in your titles to make sure that people
just to make sure it gets found.
Yeah, like it used to be like almost like a joke that we could make, and then I think the more we went along, the more it became something. Even though it's still comedy, it became something serious.
Yeah, and I almost don't even want to say we're 100% comedy because there is a very large part of it that is not. Because that first case, the first half of our show is always something very serious that we tend to not do too many jokes.
No,
that's why we cut it up with the kooky crime at the ending.
Yes, I love that. Yes. Yeah, you do the kooky crime.
Yes. Yeah, and that's where we kind of go off the rails.
Yeah, you gotta end on a lighter note.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's usually just a little misdemeanor, something ridiculous that happened and nobody was really hurt, that kind of thing. So just to make it a little bit fun.
Wrap it up.
And it's not easy. Have you ever had moments where you've thought to yourself, I can't do this case? Or I can't. Like that you researched. Oh, really?
Yeah. The last one for me. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was suggested by one of our followers that we covered because I had asked because I like doing that because I will often take about 3 or 4 of them and go nope, and I get going with it and then I just put it aside. And she suggested this one and I read about it and I read about the trial and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to do this. But as I was going through it, I was like, it is so hard to get through that by the time we were done, and then it was right after Amazing Jane, it was Cindy Gladou's case, and it was so disturbing on every level, and that it happened in 2011 and 2015 was a trial. It was just, I couldn't wrap my head around it that was that type of behavior was happening now.
Yeah.
But you powered through and you did it.
We did it, yeah.
Because it was
hard. Very uncomfortable. It's funny because we finished it and we put it out and I'm still uncomfortable with it because it's just like, it
makes you feel icky.
Especially because like I got so angry at so many times and I always afraid that translates to, again, humor, much like we were talking earlier about how we're almost afraid sometimes that our awkward noises comes off as laughter, or it's just my anger is hilarious. And I don't mean it to be, but it's one of my coping mechanisms. It's sort of like the moment I get into an angry mode, it's sort of like a string of almost apologetic humor. And I think that's something that happens with women sometimes, where we have to almost like defer to humor or being apologetic about something very strong.
That's very true.
The case of Cindy Gladou, this made me so angry every step of the way. And Krista had done so much research and had been so good about presenting it, and it is hard to not react with a sudden sort of
why did this happen
the whole time. There's definitely been episodes where either one of us has spent a good portion going,
it's because you take turns. So one of you does a story each episode, which I really like because it makes it makes variation. It digestible, like to focus on one story per episode.
And it is kind of nice because I might have an idea of what she's going to cover, but I probably don't have all the ins and outs. So it's like I'm being told for the first time as well.
Love it.
At the beginning we were covering the same episodes and it was, or the same cases, so it became a bit of a back and forth. We already knew everything. It was a lot of repetition, so it was kind of like, maybe we should just do one and one.
You can almost hear that we almost at times it was sort of like, I know this in our voices.
Right, yeah, because we knew everything. At least this way when we present it, it's a lot more...
the other person reacts.
Yeah, and it's real because we really don't know.
And there's a connection with the listeners then as well. And like I frequently address our listeners because first off, it's sort of like, guys, you're hearing this too, right? Like, listeners.
Am I the only one?
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, because if one of you is reading... the other one will be like, Krista, don't tell me that. Like, why?
There's a lot. There's like definitely episodes that I'm sure I've sat there for like 10 minutes going, I
love it.
No.
Yeah.
I love that aspect of it.
It's nice because you get the reaction of the other person, and you also get, if it's not a week off in a sense, but you get a week to just learn something.
You just you learn, you ask questions, you react.
And even the one, the Olin case that I did, as I was researching it, I'm sitting there going, he's innocent, this is ridiculous. And then I presented it with Lily and we got talking, and I'm like, even the episode, I'm like, okay, I'm convincing myself of his guilt now. Like, it was so back and forth and it's something like that I really enjoy, that we get to talk about these things, and especially when it is something questionable.
Yeah.
So it's kind of...
It's nice to have an excuse to sit down and talk true crime.
That too.
Yeah. That's what it is. We're like, okay, this is a lot of true crime talk now.
Yeah.
And how do you go... This is what I'm fascinated, and this is what I've always wondered. Because with my show, I don't have to research that much. It's very conversational. It's very based on personal experiences. It's all up here.
Yeah.
But with you guys, you have to do research. You have to make sure the facts are right and all this. So how do you... Number one, how do you go about choosing a case? And... what's your research? Like, is it mostly online, or do you go outside of that?
We've done a little bit of everything. Yeah. Between mostly news articles. I've referenced a fair number of books.
I've done like 2 books. I'm not a big book person.
Me neither. Ding ding. I'm all over the internet.
I love a good book, but eventually I'll just get caught up in it, and I'm like, I'm just going to tell this story again, and it's got chapters.
Yeah.
So I'm a big internet research person, and I mean, the last episode I got from a ghost walk.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it.
So it's like, and most of the stuff that I got was from a local museum. So I was like, okay, well. But then other times it's on the internet, and there's nothing wrong with using the internet. I feel like that needs to die as a like opinion where people are like, ooh, you just use the internet. It's like, it's what you doing? You get your Dewey Decimal System up in the library, you think it's better. It's not. You can get articles online. You can get
legit stuff online.
Like, I've been researching a case for a while, and it's about like Supreme Court cases, and you can find all of that online easier than you can go on to the library.
That's
and
like, can you... Out of the library, you gotta go there. With the internet, you can just be in your pants off in your bed.
Yes, exactly. I will never not take the pants off option.
Yes, right. It's the best option.
All about it. Picking cases is a bit hard.
It is hard. I've had some troubles. Back and forth.
Yeah,
but
because you're not always going based off of what you know.
Well, initially
it was a bit easier
because we were taking cases. We did each province and territory.
Yeah,
we covered all of Canada first, and then we were like, well, let's just go wherever we want.
Yeah.
So
you went across country.
We did. We went all over the place, and so then eventually we narrowed it down. So it's all like, oh well, we have to do it from either PEI or from like somewhere in the Northwest Territories or somewhere like that. And now it's sort of like whatever you want. So this week I was like, I was going to do another case, and I was like, no, I'm going to do a case that doesn't involve a million options of reasons why life is horrible. I'm going to do a case about a guy who just murdered another guy.
You're going to keep it simple.
Straightforward. Because like for the last couple of weeks, we've done like pretty intense cases.
Yeah.
And I was going to do another one, and I was like, no, let's just break.
Let's just table that for
do the ghost walk one, please.
Yep. Yeah. So, you gotta almost like, it's almost like when you're like watching the news and it's just like horrible story after horrible story. Like I've had days where I've had to turn it off.
You just want a live at 5 milestone.
You just want a puff
That's all you want.
piece.
Yes. Puff piece, give me a puff piece.
Yes.
And that's this week's episode is a puff piece.
Yes.
Okay.
We fully admit. I even said it in the info. So like this is definitely a puff piece. Yes. We just need a break because we did Sandy Glider, we did Jane. Before that, it was
missing Michael Dunning.
I listened to that one. That was good.
It was like a parade of them. Really,
it was a parade.
It was amping up. I was like, well, what am I gonna do next now? Something else horrible.
Oh man!
So we needed to take a break,
and we were before we recorded talking about the idea about humor and true crime and how it's kind of a polarizing subject in the community. In the community of people, I guess, that are commentating on it. Yeah. But you guys are hilarious.
Oh, really?
I do think you're pretty funny. And I'm on the side of I would rather that. Because that it helps me deal with the horrible subject matter. Yeah. And I'm the same way with when I just read stuff on the news. And I think what a lot of people don't get is we're not laughing at the victims.
No. We don't pick fun.
Exactly. And it's the same, like, if I'm on a trivia team and if something not so great happens in the news, sometimes we do pick team names that are, like, kind of a little more, like, again, we're not offending what happened, but we're commenting on it in a humorous way. And a lot of times people are like, no, we're not a fan of that. How do you deal with that? Like, obviously you've established that this is your tone, and you're going to keep going with it, right?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I'm not going to change my tone for no one.
Hell yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
It is hard. It is hard when someone comes at you and says basically, yeah, you know how you are?
We don't like it.
Okay. Because it is. It's not like we're putting on personas to do this.
And and you're telling other people's stories and you're talking about subject matter that is tough to hear. But like I said, like you guys put disclaimers on every episode almost. Well, from what I've heard so far.
Pretty much.
So much. I mean, the last one, not so much. Disclaimer, it's a palate cleanser. You're not going to be like sitting there going,
It's the intermission of the concert.
It is the intermission.
Where, people can just
take a break. Go to the bathroom for this one.
Like, it's just, that's just part of life.
Yeah.
You know, like, humor is just how I deal.
And I get that. You know, it's not everybody's cup of tea. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's just being told constantly that it's not the right way to do things. It's just kind of like kicking
anyone tone policing when it comes to like how you're going to approach something.
Yeah, and every episode isn't going to be you guys cracking jokes the whole time because. Like, and I have noticed, like, in some of your episodes, it's like, you guys will just straight up be like, yeah, we're not really funny tonight. And there's a reason for that. It's because we're talking about this horrible thing that happened that is really hard to talk about.
And even when we are funny, it's usually, like, something tangent about, like, the town that we're talking about or a situation or something like that. It's very rarely even anything to do with the crime itself.
Yeah, my favorite moment of humor is from Mad Trapper, when I was guessing who the Mad Trapper was, and I guessed it was Sven, the cousin on Golden Girls.
See, and I was like, nothing to do with the victim.
Nothing to do with the victim, and nothing to do really with the crime.
If anything,
unless it was Sven.
The people you put fun at are the people doing it.
That's what I always fall back on. It's very much I will make fun of the person who committed the crime.
Yeah, because fuck them.
Yeah,
because you made the choice to do it, and
well, and even then, it's sort of like if the person's troubled, then it's harder. So like when we did the case in the Saskatchewan about the guy who killed the family because he had basically a very unchecked schizophrenia. Not making fun of him.
No,
because he was very troubled. And that's another thing altogether. And like we really just focused on the court case itself in that case because I didn't cover the details of the crime because there's no point in going over and over what happened.
No.
I want to talk about the court case because it was very important when it came to the insanity plea.
Yeah,
but we don't spend the episode making fun of anyone. If anything, we make fun of ourselves,
right? Yeah,
and like our reactions, and it is. It is hard sometimes to have to argue it.
It's good to like have when you're hearing about something harsh to have a little laugh every now and then.
Absolutely.
Because what are you gonna do? Like otherwise your listeners are so sad afterwards, and they're just gonna be bogged down with this heavy.
It's a bummer to see people who are all like, "I need a break from true crime podcasts. It's too heavy," and I'm like,
"Hi,
come sit with us.
Come sit at the cool table.
Yeah, we'll be your friend."
Oh man, that reminds me of something though. What you just said about the insanity thing. Because my next question was going to be, are there any specific cases that really ignited your interest? Like anything, maybe when you were younger, that really spiked your interest in it? Like, and made you really like, I don't want to say obsessed, that might be the wrong word, but just really interested in it.
Yeah.
Were there any specific ones?
When I was younger? I don't know.
Because I know what it was for me.
You go first and then we'll follow.
So I have two actually. And I don't think you guys have covered these. I went through your titles. I don't think you did.
Gonna have to write it down and then maybe we will.
The killing of Tim McLean.
Okay.
Tim McLean. Who was the guy who was beheaded on the Greyhound bus.
Oh yeah, Vincent Lee.
Yeah, Vincent Lee.
So that case, when I heard about that.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
That one sparks a lot of between the two of us, and this happens quite often in the podcast. We will not necessarily agree on what's happening.
Yes.
And mainly, I'm a very cut and dry person. It's this way. It should be this way. That's it.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. And you're a little more...
I'm a bleeding heart.
Yeah. So when you talk
it
about the case of Vincent Lee, and it did spark a lot of outrage on the internet recently when he was released.
Yeah.
And, I don't agree with it. They do agree with it, back and forth. And I thought, I'm never doing it. Never covering that episode. It's just too controversial.
A lot of people covered it.
And it's been really done many, and well done. Like Minds of Madness did an excellent job.
Yeah.
Some other podcasts as well.
Yeah.
So I kind of put that one in the Paul Bernardo bucket of not going to
touch it.
No.
He's been sensationalized so much, and it's in an area where it's sort of it's mental health, and I would talk about it, but I would feel awkward literally the whole time because it has been sensationalized and he's been villainized, and obviously because of a good reason. Don't get me wrong, but
we've had this conversation off mic with other people too. About this case, myself and another friend, we were talking about. I don't agree with him being out 100%. I was like, I feel like there should be some sort of check process or something that's a little bit more regulated than just going, he's going to check in with a doctor every once in a while. Well,
he's going to stay on his meds. And so on.
Like something a little bit more concrete that will ensure that he's staying on his meds.
Yeah.
And maybe even being institutionalized or something like that, and treated. Whereas some other people think, no, never out, never anything. Just
what he did was horrible, and we're not going to think about it at all.
Or then there's other people who are like, he should be let free.
Exactly.
See, I'm of the camp of if he's on medication, and people always argue, well, people go off their medication all the time. Yes, they do. People go off their medication all the time because they don't like having the side effects of like heartburn, or they don't like the side effects of not being able to sleep. The side effects of Vincent Lee going off his medication, I want to believe, is a good motivator. And he was not taken care of his entire life, and now he's been taken care of, and I want to believe in my bleeding heart of hearts that he will continue to go that path.
Onwards and up.
Onwards, yes, and I want to believe that, and I want to believe that we can, we can society try to have faith in it. But then again, I do understand the reaction of like, no, he needs a checkpoint,
right?
Because he will be checking in with his doctor to get his refills, and I know that, and we don't know what his actual system is outside of it. This is the law's not responsible for it anymore, because you can still have doctor's appointments, you can still have a therapist and so on, but I want to hope he does, because the system had failed him up until what happened. And
it is the whole thing. It's a tough one.
And super tough. And for me, it's hard to go with just that, because I'm more of the mind of, and it could be because I have absolutely nothing to be in common with any kind of mental illness or anything like that. So for me, it's like I don't have any understanding of it. So my thought is, somebody needs to make sure this guy's checked and continually, and if it means being hospitalized or whatever he needs to be, then I would be more of that mind. Not imprisoned, but
having like an actual system in place that the law is therefore responsible for keeping him in check.
Yes, so that we have a higher power other than.
I would love that, just because the mental health services is not very good right now in Canada, because there's not the resources. So I would love that, because then he would guaranteed have care.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I hope he does. I hope he would have it.
Was he diagnosed before this case? Like, he's a diagnosed schizophrenic. I don't think so. Interesting.
I don't. He was untreated and completely left alone by the system, and
everything else.
And everything else.
It's just one of those cases for me that has.
It was disturbed me. It was
to
unbelievable.
A point of like, I'm someone who, and I'm the ideal listener for your podcast, because I when it's something disturbing or weird or really hard to hear,
ooh, tell me more.
I want to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm the one that clicks on the graphic images, pictures.
For me, it's sort of like answers to me.
Yes,
because I'm a visual learner, and I need. Otherwise, I will just.
Imagine,
get lost in it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just like that type of curious person that's like, I want to see the car accident. I want to see
I think that's very common. I think there's very much a looky-loo type attitude in society. So
with that case, like, it actually changed how I get on buses now, because I don't sit. I'm the type that goes right to the back so no one's behind me.
That's legit.
Because of that case. That case disturbed me so much to a point of, like, if someone just looks a little sketchy on the bus, I don't sit next to them.
I mean, I that was generally my idea on buses anyway.
Yeah, even before it.
Generally didn't sit near sketchy people. I can understand that, because it was so shocking. And I obviously don't want to diminish what he did when it comes to feeling any sort of empathy. You can have empathy for the person who did it, but not for the crime. We talked about this before.
Ooh, that's a good way to put it. That's a really good way to put it.
That's when we talked about the massacres on the plane, which was the one that we talked about earlier with the man with the insanity plea. Yeah. And it's sort of like, I feel bad for the boy that wasn't treated, but I don't feel bad for the murderer.
Exactly.
And it's hard.
That's a great way to...
It's hard because there's people who were affected by what Lee did on the bus.
Oh yes,
there was an RCMP officer who killed himself. Years later.
PTSD was just, and people that were there and just witnessed everything, because I mean, it was so
horrific.
It was so horrific, and it seemed to just unfold in such a bizarre manner that nobody saw coming.
Your brain can't. You can't compute that.
You can't process that at all.
You can feel absolutely horrible about all of that, and then, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing I want for them is what I want for Lee, which is treatment and care. And I don't want to condemn someone, because if you put them in jail for the rest of his life, he's not going to get treated. It's just going to be a place to hide him away. And that's treating people with mental illness as if they're going to be always a criminal.
And that's very true.
There are many criminals who don't have mental health issues.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people with mental health issues that don't kill anyone. So tricky.
Yeah, it is really tricky. I looking into like mental health cases is one of my interests, and not just because it's very interesting in general, but I also have anxiety, and I can absolutely relate. And obviously I also trained as a teacher, and you have to learn about the different things you might need to deal with in a classroom. And so you learn about all those things, and the more that comes up in cases, the more I'm interested. So because it's sort of like, oh, okay, well, this thing could cause them to think that this was okay, or this thing could cause them to do it, and it's so strange.
And it's so funny that that's how you think, whereas I grew up in a household of medicine, with my mother being in nursing and myself going into veterinary medicine, not a vet, but enough in that that's how I look at it. This is exactly how this presents. This is how it's treated, and this is how what you can expect with treatment. And if it doesn't lay out like that with me, and it's not in a straightforward line, I have a hard time. So we play off each other well that way, because it gives two differing aspects to something like that.
Makes it more interesting, I think.
Especially where we're fine with arguing over it.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't
I love it.
It's just okay.
Have you ever gotten in legit fights over an episode? Like legitimate, like, we need to turn the mics off and maybe take some space?
Back it up. No. That's the only thing we've ever gotten in like any sort of angry with is when your cats wouldn't stop going through the cat door.
Or the dog comes down.
Has a drink.
Like recording.
You're like, oh, come on.
Things.
They're just standing there and you're like, okay, just wait.
Wait
you
now.
Can hear the dog, and then she's like, click, click, click. And you hear a big groan as she lays down. And you're like, okay, good. Okay, you're done.
Yeah.
I love hearing
Or like one of our fellas is like stomping around.
Oh, that is the worst.
His latest episode, my fellow was eating Skittles. And you could hear one drop to the floor, and you're like, and I couldn't even take it out. I was like, oh well, so there you go, listeners. There's a little Easter egg, a really lame Easter egg in the episode. My fellow dropping the Skittle.
We determined that we use the same mics, and these mics pick up everything.
They do. They're great.
They pick up every little noise in your apartment. The other case for me was, I don't think you've done this one either, Elsa Lam. She was the woman who was found in the water tank in Vancouver.
Yes.
Because that one messes with me because there's that video, and I'll probably link to it in this episode. There's the YouTube video of her in the elevator.
She's like playing like hide and seek or something.
Oh my god! It literally, like, I have chills now just mentioning that. It freaks me out.
Listen to the the True Crime Garage did that episode on it, and it's pretty well definitive, to my opinion.
Yeah.
There's no foul play.
No.
She, again, mentally unstable, and it's just, it's a sad story.
Really, really sad.
And peculiar because of all this. And because of where it was, too, in that hotel. Which one is it called? Cecil?
Yeah. You got it.
Yeah.
On it.
These girls are good.
On it. But yeah.
They're true crime Wikipedias.
That's what it is.
Yeah. But yes, I'm shouting out another podcast that doesn't need a shout out. But yeah, True Crime Garage did, I think, a double or even triple episode on it, and it was very well done.
Yeah.
Very detailed. Yeah.
It's stuff like that. And again, these are more well-known cases. And I think the reason that I know about them is because they were covered through the media and all this. But what you guys are doing, you're really uncovering these ones that people don't know about.
Yeah.
Oh, the one for me would have to have been Alan Legier.
Yeah.
That would have been the one that probably sparked my interest in it. And I mean, I would have been very young. I was in the late 80s because it was near my hometown. And then he was out on the run for 8 months.
That's the Monster of Miramichi.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. Have you guys done an episode on that one yet?
Yeah, it's early. There's something wrong with their iTunes.
It's like right up on. It was off the top of your head as well. It was like
we
from memory,
just went ahead
and you had some
recorded it.
Yeah, we just thought one night would be the thing to do.
That's awesome.
So
I'll have to check that out. Yeah.
Mine wasn't Canadian, so I mean I'm not cool like that, but I got really into it because I was super into vampires and gothic stuff. I mentioned earlier I was a goth when I was a kid.
Yes.
And I got a book by a criminal profiler. I watched Silence of the Lambs at a ridiculously young age. Like I'm talking like 8.
I have not seen it.
What's wrong with you?
Go watch it right now.
I'll watch it tonight. I have nothing to do tonight. Maybe I'll watch it tonight.
Oh my gosh! And then watch Have you watched Hannibal?
No.
Oh my gosh! Okay, it is the most gruesome but yet most beautiful TV show you'll ever watch.
Okay, I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I've heard really good things about it.
And they work up towards because Red Dragon is before Silence of the Lambs, so they work up to the end of Red Dragon, and it's really good. Ooh. Red Dragon's also a good.
I need to watch Silence of the Lambs.
Yes,
I can't believe you haven't watched it.
I know.
I almost feel like I shouldn't have said that.
Just pause this. We'll get it up somewhere. We'll watch it now. Now. I watched it at a stupidly young age, and I thought to myself, "Hoo boy, I could be a criminal profiler." And then I realized you needed to do like math and stuff, and so I was like, "No, I can't do that, but I can read a book." So I got into that, and they also in my hometown filmed a TV film about the Green River Killer.
Green River Killer.
Yeah, and so I got into that because it had Carrie Ewells in it. And what's the name of the guy? He was like, he was on Alias. Does anyone remember Alias?
Yes.
I did not like that show.
No? Well, it's not Victor Garber.
Was he the main?
It was the dude, yes. He was in it. And they filmed it in my hometown. And I thought, I'll read about that. And then they got the same time. They had the film with Carrie Ewells going on. And yeah. It was the whole thing. But I got into it by that book about criminal profiling and about interviews with murderers and like reading about like interviews with John Wayne Gacy and like the big names. Like Ted Bundy I was obsessed with when I was a kid. Yeah. And not like obviously like not in a sort of I want to write him and marry him kind of way, what with him being dead and all. But it was more the case of I was obsessed with the idea of a charming killer.
Yeah.
Like that's something. Because I mean, Silence of the Lambs with Hannibal Lecter, and you get these charming killers in horror films a lot. And I just love the idea and hate the idea at the same time. Because sort of like, if I saw someone with crutches and they wanted me to help them get into a car, I'd be all like, well... No! That's what it is. No, you just walk by and you're like, sorry, bad back.
That's what I was gonna...
Yeah, I'm gonna Bundy you now. I'm sorry.
Oh man, I was gonna ask you like, in doing these cases and learning more about murderers and like their tendencies, does it make you guys more cautious? Like, as people out in the world, like kind of like me getting on a bus and not one to sit beside anyone.
I'm not a cautious person. I'm an idiot.
No, and I don't think it would be any more than it would have been before. Because I mean, having grown up reading it, watching it,
right?
You know, still researching it, just not producing anything with that knowledge.
I think it's strange because I think we say we're not vigilant, but I do think that I do notice things and take awareness of my surroundings when I'm out alone at night. But I don't think that has anything to do with serial killers and crime and true crime. I think it has to do with, obviously, here comes the feminist agenda.
Yeah, let's get it!
It has to do with the culture that I was growing up in as a young woman. And, you know, I was talking to my friend the other day about how messed up it is that I don't remember how old I was when I was taught about walking with your keys between your fingers. When you're walking out at night, where you put your key between your fingers.
Me and Krista just looked at each other like, what?
Well, girls, if you're I know what you're talking about. I don't remember how old I was when I learned that.
So that was looking great.
It was when I was young.
Really
and you learn about that, and you learn not to walk with like music in at night. And you just learn more about your... And it had nothing to do
like girls
with criminals
are
and
taught
crime
never to walk
in that
alone.
sense. Yes. And not go down dark alleys and not wear what you want to wear and not look a certain way and not smile, but then do smile.
But then, because if you don't smile, they'll tell you to smile.
Right? So the whole thing. And sitting in a cab and hoping that he's actually, you know, taking you home. And it's a whole thing. But I don't think that had anything to do. I didn't feel about that because of crime.
It's more in the socialization.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Because I don't worry about...
I was never taught any of that.
I never taught any of that. No.
And I do those things.
I mean
all the time.
But no, that's the thing. You don't need to be taught. You sat down. This is naturally. You start learning these things. You just learn.
And it's like, I don't think I've ever had a male friend of mine leave to go walk somewhere and me go, are you going to be okay?
Should I call you?
Well, yeah, like...
On the way? Do you want to be on the phone on the way?
That never happens.
No.
With guys.
No.
Like it does with girls.
I think I'm too old.
You're too old for that. You're very good though. You're always all like text when you get home.
I do that, but that's more my mom.
Yeah,
I am a big believer in that.
Yeah.
I'm a mom. That's mom me, and that's more because I know somebody's driving home. I'll do it with Amanda all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, she drives constantly, and I don't know why I ever worry about her going from my house to her house. But I'm always like, text me when you get home. But it has nothing to do.
Case. Yeah. In the off case that something happens.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as when I visit at home. My mother still waits for me to come home.
Yeah.
Even though I don't live there anymore and I don't come home ever.
Yeah.
But if I'm visiting, she'll make sure I'm in the door before she goes to bed. Because it's ingrained in your psyche. If they're supposed to be there with you, they need to be there.
Yeah.
But
that wasn't affected by your love of serial killers. That wasn't affected by that? No. They weren't checking to make sure that you weren't hanging out with anyone who, like, you know, had the McDonald triad.
I had a very good group growing up. We never really had murderers or issues, or we weren't with the wrong quote unquote crowd. So I don't know. I just never really had that.
Interesting.
Because
I feel like I'm kind of the opposite. I'm kind of like, the more I learn about different cases, the more I'm just a paranoid person. Just like my personality is like, I'm just the person who's paranoid about everything and overthinks.
Well, with my
everything,
with my anxiety that gallops through my mind at all times. I often, when you read cases and you read about the scenario that happened to lead up to it, it's almost like, okay,
you get stressed.
The worst thing for me is the more I read, there is no connection between victims. When people are all like, they're like, don't go to that dark alley, don't do this, don't do that, and you're like, no, girl, I've read enough true crime now that it doesn't matter.
It
absolutely does not matter.
That's true. It could be completely random.
Because that's victim blaming, and we're taught that you gotta like police your own self so that someone doesn't murder you. And it's like, maybe talk to the murderers about not murdering.
Exactly.
It is sort of, the more I read, the more it's like, no.
I think maybe that's where I am. It's more like, it doesn't really matter.
No.
So I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do what I do. And if,
and you can't live in fear either.
No.
You can't be someone who's scared to leave your house.
And if you are, then holy heck, it's a hard life.
That was my grandma, actually. My grandma was the type to just never travel, never do anything out of the norm. And she was just terrified of everything. And I think I have some of her genes, but not all.
And I mean, not to be too glib about it, but is she still with us?
No.
So she still did die. So
wait, we all died, right? What?
It is sort of like that element where it's like
she died of old age, like
exactly.
But she still could have been,
she could have, like, anything can happen, and it is hard to I understand. Because obviously, again, because I said anxiety, I understand the fear of like things that you just can't avoid.
I think for me, I have more fear of freaking coyotes going out jogging at night than I do for other people. Like,
especially now, because they're like were-coyotes.
Yes, they are. But you know, well, I mean, where we live in rural Nova Scotia.
Yes.
Like going out, but I always have my dog too. I think that's part of it. I always have a little bit of comfort knowing that. And I think my husband even says it more than I do. He's like, hey, well, be careful. I'm like,
careful.
Yeah. Like, I'll be back when I'm back.
Stop bugging
I love
me.
it. Stop bugging me.
Gosh,
I come back and
my
I
safety.
face planted in the pavement. I'm like, that's the worst that's has happened so far.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. So, on that subject, so apparently you walk by a murderer 36 times in your lifetime. I have an article here about signs. Let's call them red flags, maybe? Pink flags?
Red flags. Murder flags.
Red flags. I love it. It's a list of traits or, I guess, behaviors that might lead someone to murder someone else.
This is a big thing on My Favorite Murder. We talk about head wounds or head trauma.
That's one of them.
And then
That
there's
is
the McDonald triad, which is the bedwetting, arson,
and
cruelty to animals.
Yeah.
But
I think those are all on here. The first one is, scroll up, childhood abuse and neglect.
But that's pretty standard if you're not.
yeah, I mean, if you're not taught right and wrong,
It's very hard to control
it's
later.
very hard to figure out what right and wrong is.
Right.
And although, let me just say, with all these lists, as always, you probably can guess what's coming. Not everyone with childhood abuse and neglect.
This is just one big disclaimer of we don't want people yelling at us after this.
If you have a head trauma, that doesn't mean you're going to murder.
Absolutely.
Even
There's
if you
something
have,
very dangerous in these lists.
even if you have all 9 of
times.
these,
Yes.
you might not
You
never
might-
do it. It's just more
Yeah.
things that could contribute to your psyche.
Yeah, something that's like a what's a connecting factor when they do studies of different murders and they look at all the murderers that have been caught, which is maybe actually only murderers who get caught are the ones with head trauma.
That's very true.
That's very, very
It's very much
true.
the study of that.
Yeah, you have to be critical when you're reading.
Reading these kind of things because you don't want to sit at home like looking over at your significant other or friend going,
But let's be honest.
we all do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, we're definitely sitting there going, murderer.
There's just some people in my life that, I mean, this might not go in, but
that may or may not be murderers.
well,
Shit, we're calling 222 tips.
I'll tell you guys.
100.
Do you do that thing though when you're reading a list going, shit, that's me.
Yes.
Ah, shit.
Or you're just like, I have like 7 of 9. This time we worried.
Oh dear, shit.
Oh dear.
No.
The next one is poor school reports and employment records despite intelligence.
Oh girl, I didn't know that.
That's just anybody who I find is too smart for their own good. Do you know what I
Yes,
mean? Like
I
those
do.
people that just cruise through school and never have to do
I had
anything.
a guy that I went to school with that he cruised through, but he didn't get good marks because he cruised through. He literally was like doing the minimum, and he thought he was too smart for it. And then I met up with him years later after university. Yes. And no.
I'm so fucking gullible.
No, I was like,
working
what
on
do
my
I do?
sarcasm meter.
Oh no.
Sign when you're sarcastic with me. I'm just believe
Sarcasm
everything.
is like how I communicate. No, I was like, what are you up to? And he's like, well, I'm kind of like working on my music. And I'm like, of course you are. And he was like, I'm looking for like the notes between notes. And I'm like, nope. Nope. He told me about a YouTube video of a guy getting assassinated on YouTube. And he's like, and then you can watch the moment when he dies. And I'm like,
Oh boy.
bye.
Red flag. That's a red flag.
One of the 9 things is talks fondly about a YouTube video featuring a murder. If he's into snuff films.
Oh man.
Finding notes between notes.
Notes between notes. Oh my gosh.
Wows.
Yeah.
I was like, sharps or flats? Like,
I
what
know.
are you talking
I was
about?
definitely sitting there going, I don't think that's a thing. Like, I'm really impressed that you're finding notes between notes.
You just put a red flag right on his head.
Yes,
He should just
right on
wear
him.
a hat. That's a red flag.
Done.
Number 3 is excessive antisocial behavior.
I mean,
That's Lily.
yeah. Constantly. I don't like putting on pants though. I don't think it's because I want to murder.
neither.
So I mean,
But I'm social. I just don't like pants.
I'm social in so much as once I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. But getting you there is
getting me out is sort
a struggle.
Of like, yeah.
Damn. But then you also think, like, I mean, antisocial, I guess, but, like, you also associate, like, really charismatic people.
Ted Bundy, we're talking about. He was an antisocial except for the murdering part.
Yeah.
That was super antisocial.
Yeah.
Like, he had somebody's head in the fridge. That's not right.
Damn.
You don't put that. Don't put heads in the fridge. Guys. Listeners.
Somewhere else.
But yeah, no. He, when I think of antisocial, I think of, well, like, frankly, like me, where I'm all like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to stay in and watch Bake Off. Yeah. But now it's, I know that what they mean is more like defiance and issues like you don't follow social norms in a destructive way. I don't mean like,
you stay
just not going out.
You're not it's not an introversion thing, it's something else.
Like you're talking to someone and you're not following conversational norms, so they're all like, no, I don't want to talk about this. You're like, yeah, but here's a really personal issue that I think we should talk about right now. And you're like, can we watch the movie, please?
Yeah, like
that's antisocial behavior. That's sort of like they're not reading the room, they're not reading anyone around them.
That's very true. This kind of goes into your music guy. Obsessive fantasizing is number 4.
Well, you imagine there was notes between notes.
Yes. I just read
what the fantasies are?
It says this fantasizing is often accompanied by compulsive masturbation, particularly in serial killers in the making often find it hard to form relationships with actual human partners.
I mean, that's legit. Not that I agree that it's hard to form relationships with human partners, but I mean, that would denote someone who didn't have any care for humanity. Which I think is a very big common factor in murders. Yep. Because like Ed Gein didn't really dig the living. Dug the dead, that was the problem.
Yeah, he did.
Thank you. But yeah, he very antisocial behavior, and he didn't have the connection with humans that most
except for mom.
Except for mom.
Ooh.
But yeah, that one makes sense.
Ugh, makes me feel.
Oh yeah, it's gross.
Makes me feel icky.
And the masturbation thing. That actually, again, I gotta keep talking about the insanity plea case that we talked about. He had that issue.
Really?
Where he would masturbate all the live long day when he was in the hospital.
Really?
So
damn.
It's like almost a compulsion. Yeah. And it's that's antisocial as well, because you're not, well, first off, you don't whip it out and jack it off in front of people, but it's a behavior that's compulsion where he's instant gratification.
Right. I need it now.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And it will lead to, like, to do that, like, aggressively and obsessively can lead to not understanding that that's not how life works, and you just rewire your brain and stuff.
Exactly. So true. And then there's head injuries. That's number 5.
Do you have any of ours head injuries?
Not that I can think of.
Right? Maybe we're researching the wrong cases.
And it says here over half, well, I don't know where they're getting the research.
Yeah.
Over half of serial killers have suffered a violent head injury.
Again, the ones that we've caught. And so maybe that's why they've been caught. And also...
Because they're slower?
Yeah. If the head injury...
running really slow like a zombie.
Does head injury mean... Like, did they get hit in their murder zone?
That's what I don't understand.
Because, like, Phineas
damage
Gage...
to prefrontal cortex.
Well, Phineas Gage, he's a very famous case about someone who was damaged, in the head. And he got a railroad spike pushed right into his head. And they thought, oh, shoot, that's a dead one. No, he was fine. He's just a completely different asshole of a person. God. Because it went right through his frontal cortex, and he just, he just made him a raging asshole.
That's terrifying.
But he lived.
Yep.
But he didn't murder anyone.
Right.
Although if he did, I mean, maybe we just don't know.
That's the creepy thing about all of this.
It is sort of creepy when you think about it, because like this list is of people again who were caught, and you're like, oh, but what's the tying up factors of the people that aren't caught? Because those are the ones I'm interested in knowing to be able to spot.
Right.
Yeah.
Voyeurism is number 6. Yeah,
because it's objectifying things, I think.
Yeah, and then they mentioned the McDonald triad here, which is what you guys just said, and then bedwetting. So. This is, I
feel like a lot of people bedwet.
I only kind of learned about this recently.
Yeah.
So this is a sign of what is it about bedwetting that, like, is it people just can't control their bladders sometimes, in my mind.
I think it might even stem back to the abuse.
Yes.
Could be a huge part.
That really is a sign of it.
Yeah. So I feel like all of these can almost be combined into
the abuse.
A lot of them.
Shitty childhoods.
And neglect and, you know, never the antisocial behavior. Well, they probably were in a home that were full of antisocial people. So why would you? It's one of those nature versus nurture things.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Damn.
Yeah.
Arson number 8.
I think
that's just ramping up. It's like voyeurism, arson. That's all just ramping up, and animal torture.
Animal torture is definitely a ramping up. That's the biggest red flag for me.
Especially when they're younger and they just start to do it for fun.
Girl, it's when they're teenagers that scares me. Because like when they're younger, I mean, at least then they're sort of
they don't know
hope in hell,
right?
That you can be all like, okay, don't do that, and they can learn. But once they're like 19, it's like and being abusive to animals, so you're like, shit, that's in there.
Terrifying.
You thought that was okay at age 19.
Yeah,
and that's not cool at all.
And going back to me being someone who always is like a tell me more person, animal abuse can't look. I don't know what it is. I'm just one of those people. I'm like, if an animal dies in a movie, I will be crying. I'm almost desensitized now to horror movies where people die. But when I see like anything about animal abuse, I think it's common.
Yeah, it's extremely common.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like it either.
No,
I won't.
No.
I think it's just part of. I think a lot of people are like that. Unfortunately, fortunately, I'm not really sure how to think about that because you're kind of okay with the obvious. You're not okay with the obviously fake dog.
Yeah,
getting hurt.
Right.
But you're okay with watching
a human.
I think we're desensitized to the humans in horror films because there's loads of horror films where it's just humans getting murdered, but then when there's a dog. There's not like a billion dog murder films.
And I also think that's play into pure innocence. It's like anything to do with a child. I can't watch that.
Ooh, that's hard.
And or a critter because it's just because they don't. There's nothing there that anything bad should ever happen to them because they've never done anything bad themselves.
Exactly. Damn. Oh, it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But those are the signs, people.
Oh, yeah. So
keep an eye open for those 9 signs.
That's something actually I wanted to, because I'd heard that you wanted to do that list. I just read a study the other day about, this ties into the Me Too movement and everything, and about sexual assault, and about, there was men being interviewed not using the word rape or assault, but they were asked questions such as, have you ever penetrated someone without permission? And like, of course, because you have to use like non-confrontational language, and it makes me sick anyway.
Yeah.
But they'd be like, oh yeah, and so which is gross. Stop it.
Oh yeah.
But they asked so many people. They asked men who had been convicted of it, men who like hadn't been convicted of anything ever, and they asked all these questions. And the thing that they found that connected them all was nothing.
Really?
And that's terrifying.
That is really scary.
Because it's sort of like men from all walks. Rich, poor, men of color, men who are educated, everything.
But they're men.
That's what it is. That was the connection. And it's like, And so it was terrifying because there was no connection between them. You can't see it coming, and it's sort of like, oh, that blows. And of course you shouldn't have to see it coming. That's putting the onus on the victim, and you shouldn't. But they like went through this study, and it's like, no, doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter how old you are. It's just there's no connections between them when they had the same attitude.
That's
which means
really
it's
scary.
when people are like, there's no such thing as rape culture. It's like, but everybody from different walks of life agree on an attitude towards rape. So what are we calling that then?
That's very, very true.
So it was terrifying. And unlike this about the serial killers where they're like, yeah, they had head trauma, or they bedwet, or they arsoned. They arsoned. Arsoned around. And yeah, it was a lot. And so then this study was like, nah, there's no connection.
Damn. That,
life, man.
That's, I mean, the Me Too thing, I didn't think I would be affected by it as much as I was. It was really, really, that was a hard week for me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was shocking.
Yeah.
How many, because it's just, you don't realize. I mean, I think you do. I think there's this aspect of where you're like, women are just kind of like, every woman's been sexually assaulted. But then when you actually see it in a hashtag and you see it flooding your feed, it just makes it so much more real.
The worst feeling though is like, how many does it take for someone to listen? It's tied up with the whole thing that I hate the most in the media right now is as a father of a daughter.
Oh, the father thing.
First off, how shitty must your wife feel? Like, before you'd see women as people, you had to have a daughter?
Yeah.
Like, as a person who knows a woman would be like even closer to like possibly the truth, hopefully. But no, it's not. It's like as someone who this is mine and has something that's responsible for. Yeah. I hate that narrative.
I don't understand what you mean.
Well, like when dudes come up, like say like, you know, I'm not really worried about sexual assault. It's not really a thing. But then you get these people who come forward and they're like, well,
now I have a daughter.
As a father to a daughter, I completely understand now.
I wouldn't want this happening to women in
this society. And it's like, yeah, I wouldn't want it happening to my daughter. And it's like, what about your wife?
What about your female friends? What about any?
And like, it shouldn't be any relation.
It's entirely different.
Yeah,
it's entirely different. You can't fathom the difference. Like, you could say that. I would be like, yeah, I love my husband, I love my family, I love my friends and all that. But it's a different level of thinking when it's your own child. And I think if this, I mean, I'm not saying they're not complete douchebags or whatever else they're saying about the movement, but to bring up the fact that they have a daughter and trying to understand it, I don't see the harm in that. I think it's a different mentality.
But when you hear somebody's been, a man's been murdered, do you go, well, I don't really get that. I don't really feel, I think that's a problem in society. And then, but if you had a son, do you think it would be different?
If it was a young man? Yeah. And I had a son of approximately the same age?
Not the same age. Just a man in general, because the Me Too movement was about adult women saying that they were assaulted, and there was men like, well, as a father to a daughter, and they were coming out going, and it's like, okay, but like, what about your wife? What about your mom? What about your sister? Their narrative shouldn't be only important because it's related to you. Yeah. And that's where I had the trouble with it. I understand it being completely different if you're a parent. Yeah. But like, I can feel bad about somebody's sister being hurt. Yeah. And I don't have a sister. Yeah. I can feel bad about somebody's grandparent being hurt, and I wasn't very close with my grandparents. Yeah. And it's sort of like, but it's accepted in the narrative of media, where men coming out and being all like, I never really understood it, but now that I have a daughter, it's like, oh, that sucks. Yeah. I can understand the change.
There's a mentality. There is a mentality in trying to think about these situations and trying to, I'm sure, I don't know, I can't speak, I'm not a man and I'm not any of these people, but if you're trying to understand and then thinking about what has happened to these females, whoever they are, whatever age, and then trying to think of your daughter and happening to your daughter. Yeah. That hits harder, I think. Not to say you want anything to happen to your sister, your mother, your wife, or whatever. But having that idea that something like that may happen to your child, be it male or female, it's a bit of a different thought, I think. There's a downright rage that you get as a parent if something bad was to happen to your kid. It's blinding. It's just you don't. It's hard. It's really hard to explain, and I don't even know if I'm explaining it properly. But I'm not trying to say
it's a different kind of level of.
It's a different sort of. You know how they say it's a different sort of love when you have a child. It's exactly right. It is. It's a different sort of love, essentially,
because you're putting that person really, truly before yourself.
Absolutely.
In every way, and I think the flip side too, because I'm mostly on your side on that, but it's the idea of like you might not have known your wife when she was a little girl, but now you're raising a little girl. Yeah. So you
don't want to see what your wife went through live.
So I think that's where a lot of the guys are coming from.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anything they're saying is correct. Like, I'm not saying that.
It could be a new window into it. I absolutely understand that.
But I think it's probably trying for them to grasp at something that they can comprehend. Yeah. Because they're not a woman. Yeah. And they're maybe nobody in their family has had any incident. We don't know.
And that's where my like frustration with it comes from. Is sort of like, is your wife saying #MeToo? Because if your wife is saying hashtag me too, and then you're saying, well, now that I have a daughter, it's like, maybe you should ask her.
Absolutely. And that's a whole other, can of worms, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, if
you're not speaking to your wife about what had happened to her, and you're only speaking to the thing that may happen to your daughter that you don't want to happen, that's a bit ridiculous.
That's very true, yeah.
But if you don't have any...
But if you don't have anywhere...
comparison, I can see it definitely opening your mind to things.
Yeah.
It's scary to me that it takes the birth of a child for some people to suddenly be open to the idea of that extreme empathy. Mm-hmm. But I also understand that it takes experience to sometimes develop it as well. And it's nothing to do with that person being a bad person. Mm-hmm. It just has everything to do with the society not pushing more empathy of each other.
Yeah.
So true.
And I'm not so much that if they weren't trying to show empathy for these people. I think it was more of the only way I can comprehend this is if it had happened to my kid and how bad that would feel.
There's limitations to empathy if you've never come across anything like that.
Yeah.
And then the moment you can put it into a framework.
Yeah.
It does happen. Yeah, no, you swung me around.
See, and I can't.
But that's what's interesting.
And I wouldn't have hashtag me too. Yeah. Because it never happened to me. Mm-hmm. And I honestly don't have anybody really tight to me that's ever admitted anything to that. So I can't really speak to any of that part. But again, as a mom, thinking of anything like that happened to her.
Yeah.
That's a whole other level. That's a whole other.
Oh yeah. Puts it in your perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you couldn't.
You would hashtag rage.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's hard to get your head around it when you don't have any personal experience to fall on it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying these guys do or don't. I don't know. They may be complete assholes saying these things and having somebody in their family that they're not showing empathy for in regards to this.
Yeah.
But
It is. Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think we should be bashing these people per se.
No.
I think we should just be like letting them know, like, that's really sweet that you have that sentiment, but think of it this way now. Yeah. Like almost like encourage people to just think.
It's pushing
broaden
for more.
Their mind a little bit.
I always try, like, with the pushing of any sort of, feminist agenda or, whatever, it's sort of like you have to know the limit of which you can push a person. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there is very hard and frankly, almost aggressive with mine, definitely, where it's sort of like, I see where you're at, but I would like you to be a step further.
Exactly.
And then a step further, and then a step further. Because, like, for most of, like, my adulthood, especially being interested in true crime, you do spend a lot of time trying to empathize with the victim and even empathize with the murderer at times when, obviously, their life has led to something horrible and them doing something horrible. But these kind of things where it's a lot more gray area, shit.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard. And you're like, shit, now how do I adjust to my anger levels?
Right.
To where I can accept what everybody's trying to do and what I'm trying to do. Because, like, again, we were talking about earlier, I would never have called myself a feminist when I was in university.
Me neither.
And now it's sort of like, no, I am.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah. I was always thought I was, I think I even said it on an early episode. I was like, I'm a bad feminist because I was having casual sex and I was... I was doing things that in my mind I didn't think fell under feminism. Yeah. And then I realized, I was like, wait a minute.
I'm doing what I want.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second. I am a feminist because I'm making the choices that I want to make.
Yeah.
And
it's hard with the whole thing. And, like, and especially with the hashtag Me Too movement, there was also that anti-movement where it's sort of like, it's not sort of our responsibility to educate. Mm-hmm. It's not our responsibility to step forward and say, hey, me too, because then that's putting the onus on the victim to solve the problem.
It's kind of, I would love to have a guy on to talk about this, like a guy who's done something he was not proud of, and have him like talk about that ownership, talk about what he's learned from it, how he's going to change. Like, I would love to get that perspective. There's loads of guys
who have hashtag Me Too'd as well. Because obviously men, I hate that, where they're all like, yeah, but men also get, yes, no, it's still a problem. Yeah. That doesn't make it less of a problem.
And I mean, the numbers, you can't avoid the numbers. The number, like, it is all drastically higher for women. And It's unfortunate. But on that note, let's change gears. That was great, though. No, I love talking about stuff like that. I can talk about it all day, honestly. But guys, where can people find you?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
this is your time.
Where? In your house.
Where? In your nightmares.
That too. There's us and Freddy Krueger. It's really awkward. He's now like making puns and sexual innuendos.
Wait, I have one more question for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought of this.
Yeah.
If you could have, this is a weird one. And so,
so
like,
excited
this is why, like, if anyone made it to the end, that's fine. If you could have one serial killer on the podcast. Ooh. And obviously be guaranteed that they wouldn't murder you.
Okay, well then.
Who would you
I could just see Lily's anxiety be like through the roof.
Like, this is your chance to have...
Not be murdered, but also have a good get.
Yeah.
Oh.
And...
obviously, as I said earlier, I was a big fan when I was younger of Ted Bundy.
So would be.
Not in a sort of, again, not in a writing him in jail and getting engaged kind of way, but in a sort of, oh, he's so creepy because he's so charming.
Right, exactly.
But I'd be interested in that.
Yeah.
So.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, no.
Go even, you've been watching Mindhunter?
I haven't
gotten
gotten
to
to
watch
it
that.
yet.
I need to watch that.
Well, Evan Kemper's in that, and I'm not
Yeah.
overly familiar with him
Kemper.
just to pull out facts about him. So, and I've been watching that, and I'm very interested. So probably him, just because it's in my brain right
It'd
now.
be so hot right now.
Yeah.
Damn.
It'd be hot right now.
It'd be so hot right now.
You'd be relevant. He could
You're
plug
like-
the show at the end.
Right.
Yeah. Like Hansel from Zoolander. So hot right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, so people are interested in listening.
I love that movie.
I frequently reference saying I think I'm taking crazy pills.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, it never applies, but oh my god, they're breakdance fighting! Never applies to any scenario.
You just
But I
yell at it
frequently say it for no reason.
Oh, man.
All right, you can find us.
Yes,
We
you can find
digress.
us. You can find us at our website on 36times.podbean.com. We're on Twitter at 36timespodcast. We've got our Gmail, 36timespodcast@gmail.com. We've got Facebook. You just look up 36 Times. We've got a discussion group. We got a page.
It's a closed group, and you can get in because we let everyone in.
Yeah.
That's good. And across the board, 36 times, really, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
36 Times Podcast.
And you're on, obviously, Apple Podcasts.
Yep, we're on
You're
iTunes. We're on Stitcher.
Run all the things.
Find them anywhere you listen to a podcast. Find them.
Yes. Or just shout it out into the void.
Yeah.
Which is what we often say.
Yeah.
Or Lily does
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, because I'm so loud that you should be able to hear me live recording anywhere in the province anyway.
There you go.
So it is what it is. Like, what's that sound? I think 36 Times is on somewhere. No,
I'm
just
really
me.
loud, too.
That's
I
what
get
it
made
is.
fun of all the time for being so loud.
And the worst is when you see it visually.
Yeah.
You record and
I
then like
know.
so like it's like well, like I'll look at the screen and be like there I am.
I know. You can find your waves. Mm-hmm. I feel you, girl.
It's not like waves like mountains.
More like
Like Everest versus a slight incline.
a slight hill. A slight hill.
I'm shouting at people. I was always told as a teacher, like, Miss, can you stop shouting?
Please
No,
stop
I'm just
yelling.
a naturally loud speaker.
That's just how you are. I'm the
booming.
same, I'm the
That's what
same
it
way.
is.
My natural voice is really loud too. So. But guys, check them out. Seriously, it's really good. You won't regret it. And I hope you guys.
Deep words.
I hope you guys come back on.
Yes,
Yeah,
we have to
absolutely.
come watch Signs of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Fuck yeah.
And Hocus Pocus.
Yes.
We'll live record that.
Yes, it'd be amazing.
Reactions.
I'm sure that's fine.
We actually have a YouTube channel. I've been thinking about doing reaction videos.
There you go.
So then that's something that to think
Or
about.
like a live commentary. Like Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah, we could just be figures. Like Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah, and look at the bottom. Yes. It'd be good. It'd be great.
But thank you guys you guys traveled to be here, and I appreciate it so much. I'm so glad my cat didn't hide on you.
Oh, she likes us.
Thanks for bringing a cat to the party.
Hell yeah. Comes to the apartment.
Oh, yeah.
But thanks so much, guys. And
More than welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
and remember to ring that bell.
We're Married and Parented, a family who laughs at the idea of being social outside of the world of media. We're YouTubers, a family who films their lives every day just to show you who we are. We're a pink-haired mom, a tattooed dad, a sassy 3-year-old ginger, and a grumpy infant boy. Oh, and we have a greyhound. You can subscribe and follow our odd and awkward family at youtube.com/marriedandparented. Thanks for listening to Intoxicated Podcast.